How are you doing today, Jeff?
Hey, I'm doing groovy. How are you?
I'm doing. And so you're in Brevard, North Carolina right now.
That's right, I am.
Check this out. Does that sound familiar?
I think that was 92, something like that. Yeah, 91 or
So I got
92.
that off of Facebook. It says June 2090. So
90,
that
wow.
is almost exactly 20 years. No, 30 years ago.
Yeah, I've
Crazy.
been playing with Bruce Hampton since 83. And
83.
yeah, in various different configurations. And before Aquarium Rescue, it was the Arkansas Tourists, the Arkansas Florists. There was a bunch of other things and about 15 different people before it settled in on the final crew.
Okay. Nice. What room are you in?
I'm in my den. I'm in the the wood room.
Oh, nice. Looks nice and comfy.
It's very comfy. Yeah.
Well, I'd like to go ahead and introduce you. Uh, here with Jeff Sipe, also known as Apartment Q258. That's when I first became aware of you. Was I grew up in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and went to college at Wake, and used to go to Ziggy's, and I probably saw you play. I don't know how many times,
Uh,
but so you've been a huge inspiration for me as a drummer. Uh, anyway, so I was very inspired
yeah.
by you, and so
Oh, thank
Jeff
you.
Jeff has played with many different noteworthy acts. Colonel Bruce Hampton in the Aquarium Rescue Unit, Jonas Hellborg, which I remember seeing also you guys at Ziggy's, um, and so and well, many other groups, including you've been playing
Oh,
with
great.
John McLaughlin. Is that right?
I did 26 dates together when we combined uh, Jimmy Herring's opening up band, the Invisible Whip, and we opened up for the Fourth Dimension, which was John McLaughlin's band. And then the third set, we combined everybody to play the music of Mahavishnu Orchestra.
Yeah.
And that was a thrill, man. Big thrill listening to him since I was probably 16
Well,
or maybe 14. Yeah.
I was just playing a clip of you playing with Jeff Coffin, Felix Pastorius, Kofi Burbridge, Bill Fanning for the Jeff Coffin's new pet. Is that I'm not sure if I'm
Yeah,
saying
what a
that right.
blast. What
I'll
a
bet.
blast. You know.
How many days did you do with them?
Oh, geez. I can't count them all. There were so many. Over the
Uh,
course of a few years, we played a lot of gigs together.
yeah.
Uh, Way over 100.
Uh, and did you meet Jeff originally doing shows with the Flecktones, or how did you all originally meet?
I think it was the Horde tour around there because Bela Fleck and the Flecktones were playing, or it was shortly after that.
Uh
Um,
huh.
yeah, so Aquarium Rescue Unit was playing, and he was on the same festival, wherever that was. He probably remembers. I don't remember the exact place. But we became fast friends rather quickly. And I've played a whole bunch of music with him. I think he's a genius. He's a real deep guy, you know. He's a master musician and a master educator too.
Uh,
We did so many clinics together. Like we go on the road, and in the daytime we hit one or two schools to do some classes, and then we'd hit the gigs. So we were playing all the time.
okay. And so you were born in Germany, is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, Berlin, Germany. Yeah,
And your family lived in a number of different places around the world, because your
yeah,
father was was it
yeah.
the military or the CIA or what was?
Yeah, he was in the government. He was a photographer for the government, and he
Okay.
was stationed first in Japan, then Berlin, and then in Europe, but uh, Vietnam, Saigon, and Bangkok, Thailand for a while. So I was 14 when I first came to the States um, to live, because I'd been here previously for a year or two and then go back out again. But when I was 14, I finally started high school in America, and I felt like, all right, I'm finally in America. Um,
Uh,
but that was a great year for me. I got to know some good friends at school that turned me on to some wonderful music. And I heard Miles Davis for the first time when I was 14. It was Bitches Brew, the record Bitches Brew.
yeah.
And and then I noticed everybody who played on that record had their own records. So I'd go out and look for their records, and I just fell in love with electric jazz.
Yeah. Was it culture shock to when you first came to the United States?
Well, I didn't have the benefit of growing up here during some of the most intense times in my lifetime. I wasn't in the United States for the civil rights movement when it was really heated up. Um, so I felt like I had to educate myself on American culture because East Asia. And when I was in Southeast Asia, I was fascinated by the Buddhist culture, the orange robes, and the temples, fantastic temples, and the gentle nature of the people there. It was really beautiful. That's a little bit contrasted to the American culture.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
And how do you think living in different areas influenced you both as a person and musically?
Well, I was the minority in all the places I lived until I came to America. So I had kind of a humble attitude. Always loved music. That's where I went for my feel good. Music was always there for me. My parents were very supportive. Um, I'm the only musician in the family, really, that kind of tried to do something with it.
Mhm.
But I think living abroad helped me understand other people have different ways of being and reacting and living. So I think I'm tolerant because of that. You know, I moved around a lot. I went to 13 different schools. And so you meet a lot of folks, and you move on, you meet more folks, and you move on. And there's something in that. It gives you a little bit of worldly experience as a child.
Yeah, I could see it being you have to adapt a lot, and I could see that working well with being a touring musician as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. You roll with the punches, man. There's no other choice. You got to go with what's happening, and that's jazz too, and that's music or
Yeah.
improvised music anyway.
And Bitches Brew, is John McLaughlin on that?
Yeah, yeah.
Uh huh.
Oh
I
man.
thought so. That so this is an early, extremely influential recording for you, and you said then you dug deeper and said, okay, who's on this album? I want to check out what they're doing. What did Bitches Brew lead to for you?
Oh well. Tommy Williams and Stanley Clark and Lenny White. Miroslav Vitus, Joe Zawinul, Chick Corea. Oh man, everybody that's on that album is a heavyweight, you know.
Yeah.
And so I really enjoyed hearing what they brought, to Miles, and what Miles got from them was their abstract sensibilities. And then I could go aspects of those players too when I finally discovered their solo music.
Yeah. So for Tony Williams, did you go from there to like Lifetime or to earlier Tony Williams? You did. Okay.
I dove right in the middle. I got the album with, it's called Believe It, with Alan Holdsworth on it.
Oh, okay.
And that turned my head upside down. That was future music to me.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
It still could be future music, maybe.
I know. Well, it sure is spirited, you know. It was in the age before drum machines. So the human element is very alive. The tempos move wherever the group needs it to go. And it was a different mindset. It was more about spirit, about full expression without being inside of a box or a frame. It's just free, full expression, you know, which isn't for everybody, but for a practicing musician and an aspiring musician, it was fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you feel about tempos fluctuating? How do you feel about tempos fluctuating?
Well, some of my favorite music. Oh, I think it's a nanosecond world when you talk about that. I mean, there's bands that rush together and drag together, but they move together like a school of fish, and that's okay. I think it's also human nature to want to rush if there's a big silent space to fill. Most everybody gets there too early. Or if there's a slow tempo and a lot of space, people tend to drag. But right in the middle, right around the heart rate tempo, people are more consistent with their time. So I think it's human nature to rush a little bit, and it's also human nature to give a little bit of what just happened, you know. And when you put that on a grid, you're shoved along in music. But if you're allowed to play without a click, and everybody's got really good time anyway, it's going to sound wonderful, and you won't hear the movement really, because it's a musical consideration.
Yeah. Do you have a tempo that you're drawn to that you feel like is your tempo or range of tempos? It just feels like this is a tempo that I've just always been drawn to.
Oh, right. Well, yeah, different tempos for different reasons and different feelings. For example, if you just drop the stick from a height and let it bounce, and you have like a drum pad or a snare drum that will give you a bounce, you can hear the tempo, the natural tempo of the weight of the stick and the rebound, and it gets faster as there's less space, right? So if you let the stick fall and then just let it rebound into your hand, then the tempo seems to be like this. Now, all you're doing is leaning on the stick a little bit, like throwing a ball down, and it's coming back to you. So that tempo right there is effortless. It's really what the stick and gravity and the rebound and the weight of the stick is determining. So if I go with that, I really am not doing anything. I'm just pushing a little bit on it and then receiving it. Push it and receive it. So that's effortless. And then if you start there, you can warm up and loosen up and put a little bit more tempo on it, speed it up. But starting out the day, it's nice, man. Just let gravity dictate what's happening. And that's the kind of a slow, medium slow tempo. Yeah, and it's always a challenge for me to not rush. So if I have a tempo like that, I can visualize the space between the notes. I can see beams of light between the notes. It helps me, you know, it's not just a void. There's actually something happening in there. It's wonderful. It's silent.
Yeah, the space. And so, when did you first become an educator? Because
Space is the place, man.
yeah, you've been performing for so many years. When did you consider yourself an educator, or when did that become a bigger part of what you do?
In high school, there was a couple of people that were a year younger and 2 years younger than me. And by that time, I was a senior. I had finally made it into the jazz band, and we had won some competitions, and you know, it was a pretty good band. And some of the kids wanted to study, so I started then. So I was probably 17, just sharing what I knew,
Uh,
and I haven't stopped. You know, I've had so many great teachers along the way, show me some amazing things, and I'm always thrilled to share that with somebody who you know, ready to absorb it.
yeah, and you have a book. I should let people know,
Yeah.
and also teach lessons online.
Mhm.
And I also you had mentioned in other interviews that you stay with Bob Kaufman, who I met one time. I took a lesson with him in Boston many years ago, and we stayed connected on Facebook. But please
Mhm.
tell us about the teachers and how they had an impact on you.
Sure, sure. The first guy, uh, well, there was a few other before Dave Palomar, but when I met Dave Palomar, he showed me this thing. And Dave Palomar was an amazing player in Washington, D.C., and he played for the Airmen of Note jazz band. And
Hmm.
he was incredible. He played with Tim Ironman, the East Coast author. And he showed me this exercise, and it helps open up the forearm muscles that are connected to the fingers. So you start with the pad raised up a little bit because you're not holding it like this. You're cradling it with a straight arm and a straight wrist. So you find the sweet spot where it wants to bounce the most. And then, just like you would play a tabla with your finger, you're just pushing it down and receiving it. So the finger rides the stick, it doesn't slap it. And it rides straight on the stick. Okay, you start out in a V, and then when you go to your middle finger, it's right down the middle of your nose. Then you cross over the center line, play with the your ring finger, and then the pinky. The stick moves a little bit on the pad because of the shape of the hand. You would start here, and you would end here. For example, starting at a V, middle finger. And if I pivot from my elbow here, the stick will start here and end here. But this stays the same. And so that helps open up the forearm and stretches the tendons and the ligaments out. And if you do this for 10 or 20 minutes before you play, it feels like you've been playing for hours. You're already loose.
Nice. And I
So
could
Dave
see it.
Palmer showed me that.
Okay, and I saw it a little bit. It was getting choppy, so I couldn't see the whole thing, but I saw some of that. Um, and who else are
Okay.
your teachers?
Well, Bob Kaufman was the next cat. And I used to go to Boston and see, I used to go see some of the legends up there. Alan Dawson, he was incredible to watch. But Bob Kaufman showed me these kinds of the four strokes, the full stroke, down, tap, and the up. And he spent a lot of time with the upstroke. And he described that as, just gentle motion and follow through. And that's really helped me a lot because the upstroke is what gives you all the grace. For example, if you played a paradiddle, you play down, up, tap, tap, down, up, tap, tap, down, up, tap, tap, down. And you notice the arm comes down once for every 4 notes. Instead of playing right, left, right, right, left, you can play down, up, tap, tap, down, up, tap, tap. And then there's no wasted movement. So Bob invited me to consider playing with no wasted movement. And that analyzing the 4 strokes, analyzing each rudiment with the 4 stroke types gives economy of motion and ergonomics and cleans all the dust off your playing.
Yeah.
So Bob Kaufman.
And you're in the air, and you're playing in the air a lot with a lot of space.
Oh yeah, there's follow through. Yeah. And if you keep the movement in your hands, it helps keep the movement in your head. Because of the follow through, these motions fill the spaces between the notes.
Yeah. Yeah, it reminds me of some. Have you ever checked out some teachings of Freddie Gruber? Have you ever checked out Freddie Gruber?
Not enough to really talk about it.
Okay, no, it just reminds me. I've
not
with
enough
a teacher.
To talk about it.
It seems like this kind of a similar idea as far as the ups and downs. And so, have you gotten a chance to check out the live streams that Chick Corea had been doing when the COVID, when people started staying at home at first due to COVID?
No, I haven't checked that out. I should though.
Okay, they're probably on his Facebook page, and I know he started an academy now, but just thought you might enjoy those. They've been pretty free form. He'll start out on the drums, and then he might play a little marimba, and then he'll go to the piano, and he's even getting into some of what either something he's working on or improvisation. But
I'll check that out.
And so you write as well. So you have a group. And when did you first start writing melodies and harmonies and doing that sort of thing?
Oh, every time a melody comes to me, I get my phone out and I document it. And sometimes they grow into bigger, longer phrases and longer ideas. Mm-hmm. But I really don't consider myself a composer. I create and come up, and I have some ditties. I have a lot of ditties, but not a whole lot of songs.
Okay.
But Rainbow is a song that I came up with, and we played that with Jimmy Herring and Project Z.
Uh-huh.
And I like that. That's my finest creation today.
Nice. Rainbow. Let's see if we can. Do you mind? Can we check it out a little bit?
Yeah, do it. That's great. If you're playing the version, the record version on Project Z, there's probably a 3-minute piano intro. So if you want to cut after the piano intro to hear when the band comes in full, I'm not sure how much time you have.
Okay, yeah, I'm getting there right now. Okay, and while we're waiting for that, let's see. So, what was life like before COVID? And we'll get to what it's like now.
Yeah, right. Well, let's see. Today and tomorrow, I would have been in Virginia with Oteil at the Lock-In Festival. And it was going to be a real promising year with Oteil. I had quite a few tours scheduled. And we go back, since 1987. We met in 87.
And that was with
so I was really looking forward to that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, before ARU, I played with the Burbridge Brothers in a band called Knee Deep. And it was a top 40 band in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
That band didn't last too long, but soon everybody was working in different bands. Uh,
Do
yeah.
you recommend that, um, or do you being in a top 40 band? How did that shape you as a musician?
Oh man, uh, I was coming from more of a jazz expressive world, but of course, top 40 is about keeping the form, keeping the groove, making the changes. So it was a discipline for me for the first time because I was always a jammer, you know, like progressive rock or jam rock or jazz, you know. So keeping strict time and kind of playing more compositional
Uh-huh.
was the challenge that I had to rise to.
Were you
So yeah,
ever were you ever learning songs or parts note for note or exact grooves, or were you more approximating?
more approximating. Yeah, um, I I felt like if I studied um, any drummer to the extent that I learned verbatim their parts, then I might be denying my own creativity. So I always came this far from playing note for note what somebody was playing,
Uh-huh.
with a few exceptions. There's been some that I've been like, I gotta learn that. That's just amazing.
What were some of those things that you just had to learn?
Well, some Steve Gadd with Chick Corea,
Uh-huh.
um, Night Sprite. Uh, oh, so many grooves that he plays, and
You.
so many grooves like 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover and all those. Those are compositional drum beats that you have to play in that way, or that they're not, what they are.
Yeah. Well, how would you approach learning something like that?
Well, back in the day, we had record players, and you could turn the 33 speed down to 16,
Uh-huh.
and that would drop it an octave, but it would slow everything in half. So you could pick out the notes much more easily and transcribe them, and then look at it and speed it back up, and you can see what was happening.
So would you do that just bar to bar, just bar like just okay? Here's
Yeah,
the first bar. Bring back the needle up. Back it up.
that's it. That's
Uh-huh.
it. Notepad, turntable, wore out quite a few records, but what a great way to learn.
Yeah. And you would actually write them down too. You wouldn't just
Yeah,
memorize them.
right. Yeah, I'll transcribe it. Yeah.
That's great. Okay, so let's listen to this Rainbow. This is a song that Jeff wrote. Let's see if this works. You hear that? Yeah.
Yeah,
Very
man.
nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
Oh, my phone's playing it still. Wow, man. So how would you transmit that information, the information that you gave to the other musicians?
Well, I had this little, it was like a little composer. I think it was a Korg little box, and it had different sounds, and you could program music in it. So I came up with the basic idea, da 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 da, as a theme, and then I wanted two different parts, so I would have at least three different parts. Um, so
Like
I,
interlocking parts.
yeah, complementary parts, take you away for a minute and bring you back.
Uh-huh. Oh, so you mean parts like different sections or parts that fit
Yeah, yeah,
together? Oh, okay,
different
got it.
sections. Yeah, different sections. Right. Yeah, right.
Cool. And Trenton Sicola said Rainbow Ha written for your wife question mark. He's wondering if this written
That's
for
right.
you.
That's
Okay.
right. Yeah, yeah, that's it.
Nice. So that song was inspired by your wife or for your wife?
Both. Yeah, yeah.
Nice. Well, that's really cool. And there's so did the transitions and did those kind of come did they kind of shape become what they were with the musicians? Is it did it kind of change or did it stay what it was originally?
It it's the idea stayed the same, but it was enhanced, and Oliver Wells was really key in keyboard player. He was key in bringing some really beautiful harmony to it as well.
Uh-huh.
At some point, if you get a chance to listen to the intro, he reharmonizes that phrase, and it's like a rainbow melody. Ba, 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 dum, da, dum, dum, da, da. So there's a nice arc to it, and he would just reharmonize it, and it's so beautiful and lovely. So yeah, the players enhanced what was going on there and brought their compositional minds to it as well.
What was Project Z?
Project Z. Okay. Well, if you know Bruce Hampton, then you know Zambi is somebody he praises and loves and adores. And so Z for Zambi. Project Z was kind of a tribute to Bruce's philosophy of playing in the moment, no matter what it sounds like.
Uh-huh.
And so that's the spirit we gave it. And most
Yeah.
of that record, 90% of that record is improv.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What were the early days at this gig you had at 5 Points in Atlanta? What was that like? It was 99 cents to get in or $1 to get in, so people get a penny back for every dollar. And
Yeah.
and like what kind of scene was that? And how did it change? What was that like?
Well, before I started playing with Bruce, he was with the late Bronze Age, and they were a musical group, questionable. They were a joyful noise for sure, but they were also a theater, improv theater antics and such.
Uh-huh.
For example, Joe Zambi would be inside of a teepee on stage with a ladder going up and his head poking through the teepee, and then a hot air balloon, a hot air popcorn popper was on another ladder shooting popcorn into his face while Joe was trying to eat it, and that was part of the show. So, so when I got with Bruce, he was doing a lot of antics and a lot of crazy stuff, just theater performance art, right? And music would back that up. And so I introduced Oteil to the band, and Reverend Mosier into the band, and Jimmy Herring into the band, and Jeff Mosier brought Matt Mundy into the band. And at this time, we were half music, half just running around on stage acting crazy. And so it was a performance art band at first, and Little 5 Points Pub gave us our chance to start. That was the start of everything like
that. Yeah. How did that change your performing, how do I put this, just how you felt about performing, or how you approached performing?
Yeah, Bruce kind of helped my career in one way and destroyed part of my career in the other way. Like, I was actually working in Atlanta 6-7 nights a week, sometimes double booking myself, playing a lot of smooth jazz and some weddings and proper music, played respectfully. Then I met Bruce, and he was more often than not destroying what he had already heard before, and would invite us to play something original. I remember one time the band was playing along, and we were playing all this kind of fusion stuff, all the stuff we've been listening to and practicing. And he stopped us on stage, said, "What is this, Berkeley?" And then he started playing the most god-awful, horrible stuff we'd ever heard before. And then we joined him, and that was our gateway into the unknown, you know. So it's working with Bruce is something that you not all musicians are cut out to play with Bruce, because Bruce was about intention. He wasn't about rules. And so when you open, it could be the most beautiful stuff, or it could be the most horrible stuff too.
So it took some patience.
Yeah, and I kind of gave up on the pursuit of what I was going for at the time. Bruce kind of was a gateway to the unknown, like kind of like a Sun Ra, you know.
Yeah.
Kind of a Charles Mingus Sun Ra, where the spirit of the band was stronger than anything I'd ever experienced before.
It sounds like it was very formative. It sounds like it could probably be very intense at times.
Very intense at times too. And also, I had a couple of friends pull me aside one day and say, "Jeff, we're concerned you're ruining your career. You have so much promise, but you're playing with Bruce and all these guys, and they're, you're undermining yourselves, you know." And I just had to laugh, because they didn't understand the sacrifice of an artist going for something much bigger than a genre or anything like that.
That's really interesting. It sounds like that really was, in some ways, a very pivotal moment in your career to meet him and play with him.
Yeah, it was crucial. I think, Bruce had a knack for being like a magnet for people who needed that self-expression and that vehicle to discover their own voice. And I can think all of the musicians that I can think of that played with Bruce were able to express themselves 100-fold more than they would have even in their own creations.
Interesting. And so how much freedom did you have, or where did you have freedom? Where did you not have freedom within the context of that group?
Well, you had ultimate freedom. It wasn't about right notes. It wasn't about correct rhythms. It wasn't about keeping it together. It wasn't about playing the next right thing even. It was kind of a playground, a sonic playground for misfits and mischievous musicians. It really was like a sandbox for kids to play in. and we would laugh, and we would crack up, and we played the most absurd things that you could never compositionally write down. You know, stuff that comes out of the moment sometimes, or it's beyond analysis, it's beyond transcription. It's a pure spirit, you know.
Could you be grooving and just stop the groove and turn?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, Bruce would stop the groove sometime, turn around, and walk right through the drum set, spilling the whole thing.
Oh man!
And then the rest of the band would keep playing, and I would have to find the drums. He would be handing them out to people in the audience, like, here's a snare drum, here's a tom. And I'd have to go collect this stuff and bring it back to the stage and finish the song.
Did that piss you off?
No.
It never did.
It was the funniest thing in the world, man. No, this was not an endeavor for. This was not a career builder. This was not a money maker.
Uh-huh.
You weren't in Bruce's band to make a living, or be respected, or any of the things that go along with, you know, any career that anybody would have. It was kind of an anti-music, destroy all music for a while.
Well, when I used to see you in Winston, myself and my friends, we held you all at the highest regard, and you know, it's funny to hear, you know, 20 something 30 years later, you say this was not a career move, because to us you all were the, you know, top level pros. So it's interesting. It's really interesting to hear that perspective now. So how did you make a living back then, if it was not the?
Well, I kind of took a vow of poverty back then. I moved into the back of a garage. I was only responsible for a couple $100 every month. That included everything. Uh-huh. And so I let go of my relationships. I let go of my car, let go of my pet, and I just practiced and just played these art gigs. And I lived and I could get by. Mm-hmm. But during that time, I was shedding, practicing anywhere from 5 to 10 hours a day. And it was a time where the focus was on developing technique, musical phrases, ideas, abilities, sensibilities, mm-hmm. and then going out and just trying everything you want to with encouragement to do so.
Would you stay focused practicing that long, or what would you do to keep your focus and stay productive?
Oh man, there's so much to go through. Well, I was also fascinated with Trilok Gurtu and Indian music. And so part of the practice would be warm-ups with the finger-style warm-ups, going through the 4 duplets, the 6 triplets, practicing that way between all the limbs while keeping time. Uh-huh. And then doing the inverted, the paradiddles, which are so funky, you know, the 8 ways to play paradiddle, apply those to a drum beat. Uh-huh. And then also practice time scales. So like being able to change the rate per pulse.
Yeah.
So if you have
going from 8 to 8 triplet to 16 to 5.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Like a time scale or timetable. Uh-huh. So like 4 times each. I'd have to start slower to be able to get the rest of it. Uh-huh. But that kind of thing. And then try to put those into drum beats. So you have a downbeat, backbeat, but you're changing the rate smooth, so it sounds like water poured out of a glass. And practicing rhythmic phrases like T-highs. So there's some really beautiful rhythmic phrases they use as cadences in Indian music. Here's one that's really nice. It's 5 notes, 5 quarter notes. It starts out 5 quarter notes, it goes to 5 dotted eighths, then 5 eighths, then 5 sixteenths. But you rob 1/16th note off the end of each phrase. So it sounds like da, di, ge, na, dum, 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 da. Very beautiful, very poetic. Well, there's thousands of these rhythmic phrases and equations that are available to Indian classical musicians. So trying to adapt those to Western music and drums is a really fascinating thing. John McLaughlin does it all day long.
So
other
you
things
studied, you studied Indian music, it sounds like.
Yeah, fascinated by it. I'm not formally studying, but I am like wide awake.
Did you at time have a teacher?
No. But actually, I take that back. Jonas Hellborg, the bass player, who played with Mahavishnu Orchestra and John McLaughlin in the 80s, with Danny Gottlieb and Bill Evans, Jim Beard. Well, he was familiar with a lot of these Indian T-highs and cadences, and he taught me a bunch of. So he kind of opened my head to that world, and it was like an aha moment. It was like, oh my God, I'm in a whole new warehouse of knowledge right now. Yeah. And Steve Smith is one of the masters of that too.
I've heard some things about that. And so it must have really felt like a full circle sort of thing to find yourself playing with John McLaughlin after hearing Bitches Brew when you were, I think you said 14 or so, and yeah. How did it come about to play with John McLaughlin?
Well, Jimmy Herring. Okay, actually Shovik Dutta, who owns Abstract Logic's record label and distribution label. He took on Jonas Hellborg and Sean Lane. We were that group, the trio. Hellborg, Lane, and Sipe played his living room webcast, and then after that, Shovik started his record label.
Recent? When was that? Just by the way, the webcast.
It was 95.
So wow, I had a webcast back then. That's amazing.
96, yeah.
Now everybody does.
Yeah, he did it from his living room, and he decided to get the record label because I think it was Audiophile Imports was the only place we could get progressive music. And that was imported from Japan record label. So Abstract Logics was invented, and John McLaughlin was impressed with Shovik. And when John got out of his Warner Brothers deal, he gave his whole catalog to Shovik and Abstract Logics. And now, 20 years later, they have a great relationship. They tour all over the world. So Shovik Dutta is responsible for so many musicians. He backed Jimmy Herring's records, and so when John McLaughlin heard Jimmy Herring through the record label, he was really impressed, and that's what started their relationship. The Shovik Dutta.
Well, here's a little bit of shot. Can you hear that?
I do. I hear it.
man, I'd love to play more of that. I saw Shakti many years ago, and man, to see that combination of different music was
Yeah.
phenomenal. There's a really interesting thing is when you were just playing along, there's latency, but you were still, even on my end, your quarter note was with the music, um, which is interesting. So a little experiment I've been doing with everyone that I've done these conversations with is is if you don't mind doing this, I'm going to clap 4 beats and I'll clap a few times. And if you want to clap your downbeat where you hear my downbeat, and then if we lock in, we can change the rhythm a little bit.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll grab.
So what am I to do? Play the fifth beat?
So first we'll play the pulse together with the same downbeat, which will probably not be in the same place. And then we can vary the rhythm and see what happens.
Okay. So we're going to jam.
Yeah.
Ah, gotcha.
3, 4, yeah. It's sort of an experiment and sort of a fun thing to do. Like, what is it like to jam over the internet with latency?
Right.
I kind of want to I'm kind of inspired. I'd have to find the right people, but to have an actual project to see if we could actually make music. I mean, I know we can make music, but to see what that would be like, just because I mean, technology probably is there somewhere but there's all those issues with the whole
Right.
being in two
Right.
locations.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
I guess 6G will probably, if it doesn't fry us, we'll be able to play together in real time.
yeah. Well, let's see. I really appreciate you doing this with me, and it's funny. Also, the connection got a lot better. And I'm just trying to think of any other things. I had a few things that I was wondering that I had written down. Where is that? So Brevard, what's it like in Brevard?
It's a town of city of 6,000 people,
Mm-hmm.
but in the summertime with all the tourists, it swells to 25,000 sometimes.
Uh-huh.
It's a mountain. It's a mountain valley,
Yeah.
and it's close to over 260 waterfalls. So it's at a place in the southern Appalachian where the drainage drops 1 mile. Within 4 miles, all of this water is just rushing down to the Piedmont. The waterfalls are beautiful. We live in a temperate rainforest. The monarch migration, the geese migration, green, just so lush and green. It rains every week here.
Uh-huh.
And the people are kind and gentle and wonderful. It's a great music scene here too. Steep Canyon Rangers, Grammy-winning bluegrass band, they live here.
Okay.
Sarah Siskin, the great songwriter, great vocalist, great guitar player, Sarah Siskin lives here.
Uh-huh.
She's a Grammy-winning artist, and we're on a record together now with Bill Frisell. Check that out if you can. Sarah Siskin. It's called Modern Appalachia.
Okay, I'm gonna write that down because I love Bill Frisell. Modern Appalachia, and so that reminds me of a few things. One was I saw that you played with Steve Vai in college.
Yeah.
What and you had an incredible story about hearing him call Zappa for
yeah.
And that whole relationship for him, which is amazing. What did you learn from Steve Vai?
How to be a rock star. Uh,
How's that?
how to be a rock star. He is one of the kindest people I've ever met. So it was, I was 18, he was 17. We were at Berkeley, and I was playing in a student big band, and the guitar player had left. And Steve stopped me just out of the elevator and said, "Hey, you play in that band? I want to meet that guy. I want to play in that band." I said, "All right, we're having a rehearsal tonight. Come to room, whatever it was, practice room." And so he did, and he got the gig. And I got to know him pretty well. We played in that band. We also did some recording, a little bit of recording. But I remember starving up there, I hadn't eaten in a few days. And I went over to visit Steve Vai, and it was in Back Bay, Boston. And the building he was living in was part of the Berkeley dorms. And they should have been condemned. Just horrible condition, like he lived on the second floor, and you walked up the staircase, but you hugged the wall because you didn't know if the staircase was going to collapse.
Wow.
And you got into his room, a simple, apartment. And his desk, he had his transcriptions and his music paper. He had his ashtray, his coffee cup, and a Panasonic recorder with his cassette player. And he would listen to Zappa's music and transcribe it. And one day he came to my dorm and he said, "I'm nervous. Will you go with me, please? I have Frank Zappa's telephone number. I want to call him." And so we went down to the end of the fifth floor Berkeley dorm, and there was a payphone, and it cost a dime. So he put the dime in, he dialed the number, and Gail Zappa, Frank's wife, answered. And she explained that Frank was on tour in Europe for 3 months, and to call back in 3 months, and Frank would be happy to talk to you. So he hung up the phone on cloud nine, and he was encouraged. And so he would transcribe and send it to Zappa. Zappa would analyze it, red ink the parts that were wrong, and encourage him to try again. And this went on for the better part of 6 months or so. And then finally, Steve got the call from Zappa and said, I want to bring you out as my musical director."
We just lost your video.
Yeah, I had to plug it in.
Oh, okay. That's amazing. So he knew what he wanted, and he basically initiated a relationship.
Man.
And
he was super focused. Yeah.
And
he had already transcribed a bunch of Zappa stuff. By the time he got there, he already had like a bunch of stuff handwritten out. And he was trying to marry Hendrix with the complexity of the rhythms of Zappa with the spirit of Hendrix, Yeah.
Yeah. And so what is it that he taught you about being a rock star?
I think it's a playfulness and a confidence that it's okay to have fun. It's okay to be confident without being cocky, and that he had that balance where he was never arrogant. Like you saw him as really strong, and he fed me when I was hungry. That's what I got to say about him. He's a beautiful guy.
It sounds like he was driven by love and passion, is what you're saying. That's what I'm hearing. Would you agree with that? Sorry, did you hear me?
Nope, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just saying it sounds like passion and love were his drivers, not this is what I can do, or this is.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he's incredibly showy, but it's honest, It's really him, and he's really shredding, man. He's playing some impossible parts, so it's not posing if you can back it up, man. He can back it up.
It's what he's hearing and feeling. It sounds like
totally honest, yeah.
And so, what about and I know we should wrap this up shortly, but just wondering about Jazz is Dead. I remember seeing you all. How was that influential, and what was that like to to be in that group.
Yeah, what an honor, what a privilege. All those cats are amazing. Um, Getting a chance to play with Alphonso Johnson, I mean, it doesn't get better than that.
Uh-huh.
And he let me, playing with everybody, you get to realize how you sit with them and how you interact with them. So he brought out the best in me, and he's given me pieces of myself I didn't have before, I could say that about a lot of people, but T. Lavitz, unbelievable musician and a memory like crazy. I mean, his memory was ridiculous. Really funny guy too, super funny. Rod Morgenstein, when I got a chance to play double drums with him, he was like an older brother, he was kind, he was encouraging. He showed me lots of things that I practice to this day. And just a beautiful guy. Yeah. So it was a real honor, a joy, a privilege, and a pleasure to play with that group.
That's great. Have you found that everyone that you really have good musical chemistry with, that you also have a good interpersonal chemistry with?
I think so. And it's a complex, relationships are complex, but in the arts, you go deeper into each other's soul, and you get to know the personalities, and you get to know the full spectrum of these people, myself, everybody I've played with. So it's a tender world, it's a sacred world, and it's a careful world because it is so intimate. When you play music with somebody, it's like they become an intimate partner, and the same chemicals are released in a musical relationship as an intimate relationship. So that's realizing that I treat it more respectfully and more appreciatively.
Yeah. And I just have one more question, and then we'll wrap it up. So you had mentioned that you recorded in Nashville, and I was that with Leftover Salmon?
Yes.
And you recorded with a ton of great artists who are well-known artists. Just if you could just give a little insight into what that session was like, and what the vibe was, and what are some things from each person that you got, or what were experiences like, or interactions?
Sure. Randy Scruggs, who was the son of Earl Scruggs, was the producer and guitar player on that. And he invited Lucinda Williams. We didn't actually meet her. She recorded and sent her track in. But Waylon Jennings, we got to hang out with, and that was wonderful. He had so many stories going back to the 70s and 80s, just hilarious. Really, really funny guy. Let's see, we played with Bela Fleck and Jeff Coffin and Sam Bush and Jerry Douglas, and all those cats are geniuses. Also, Taj Mahal.
Oh, nice.
And Taj was saying, it's so hard to find somebody, just give me that one potato, two potato, one potato, two potato. And so that stuck with me for the rest of my days, man. Whenever I need to simplify, I remind myself,
one potato, two potato.
One potato, two potato. It works for Taj, man.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And Earl.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, Earl Scruggs, the banjo player, of course. He played, and I remember him just sitting there with his wife, so peacefully, so honest and beautiful and gentlemanly. It's like an old world, old school dignity that I can recognize in the older generations, past generations. There's something about it, like the greatest generation kind of. There's something in those old cats that have a real strength and dignity that's undeniable. So Earl was a blast, funny and beautiful.
Yeah. That sounds like a great musical and more than just musical experience.
Yeah, Yeah, totally. Yeah, soul fulfilling, right?
Yeah, that's really cool. Um, yeah, that's I've been in Nashville for 4 years, and it's that sort of place. I mean, as far as just you never know who you'll be interacting with, and that's one of the
Hmm.
things I love about being here. It's kind of
Yeah.
weird with the whole COVID shutdown, as far as I feel like I could be anywhere, um, and yeah, anyway, but I really appreciate you taking the
Oh,
time
yeah.
to talk with me. Really, really nice to, after all these years, have a conversation, and after seeing you play many, many times, and just want to let people know that Jeff um, teaches. He has a book out, which you should definitely check out, and is obviously a touring musician. With the tours not so much happening right now, and we didn't really get so much into the during COVID thing, but I really appreciate your time. And if you don't mind, I'm gonna end the broadcast. If you don't mind staying on for just a second.
I'll do it. And thank you for everything. What a great opportunity. I
Oh,
appreciate it.
thank you.